Good evening, everyone. It is factual that the United States has the highest rate of teen pregnancies out of majority of developed countries. And in addition, within the United States, the states that do not teach comprehensive sex education have higher rates of sexually transmitted diseases compared to those that do teach comprehensive sex education. Unfortunately, sex education in the United States can be seen as being in shambles, but why? Our youth deserves to learn about every aspect of life that can impact their health and safety. I believe that sex education should be a requirement for all United States high school curriculum, given that it teaches us about the proper use of contraceptives, it teaches us about the risk of sexually transmitted diseases, and it teaches about sexual boundaries. As a high school student in the United States, I see how the lack of information or misinformation regarding sex education has affected me and my peers. So defining contraceptives and learning about what sex education can teach us about them is where we can start. A contraceptive is a barrier or hormonal method that prevents unwanted pregnancies. And if adolescents knew more about the use of contraceptives, not only would we have less teen pregnancies, but we would also let this information persist and we would have less unwanted pregnancies among women overall. It can be concluded that sex education teaches us compliance with birth control. And there are people in the United States that in the same breath oppose sex education also oppose the use of contraceptives. The Catholic Church deemed the use of contraceptives as a sin. However, what do you say to a child that has been forced to bear a child? People say that contraceptives are a violation of humanity. However, so is rape. People say that the dependence on contraceptives might lead to more unwanted pregnancies, but let's first consider the unwanted pregnancies that it has prevented. We can see that sex education relates to our health, and it also relates to our health in the way that it teaches us the risk of sexually transmitted diseases. Adolescents are extremely vulnerable to sexually transmitted diseases, and in recent years, they have faced roadblocks and barriers when learning about them. So according to Leah Keller from the Guttmacher Institute, 9 in 10 adults will experience sexual behavior before the age of 25. And further stated by Keller in this article, treating STIs must be a part of healthcare for young people. And I believe that in order to do this, you must keep them educated on such. There is even some fatalities involved with STDs. There is some fatal risk to being uneducated on STDs. Untreated STDs can lead to the risk of infertility and more sexually transmitted diseases such as HIV. In addition to this frightening truth, globally, 72,000 adolescents have died from HIV in the year of 2023, and they deserve to be educated on that. Now, sex education also dives into the world of sexual boundaries. Sex education clearly informs us that consent must be mutual, verbal, and unmistakable. It also reinforces consent as a responsibility for both ends. Now, when we're talking about boundaries, we can also see how sex education emphasizes sexual discipline. Many adolescents engage in risky sexual behavior, and sex education reinforces self-control and resistance to impulsive sexual behaviors. It also states that it also states that the rules of consent should never be violated. So, with all of this said, there are actually way more benefits to sex education. According to the Center of Global Reproductive Health, sex education allows for adolescents to feel comfortable and empowered in their own bodies. In addition, in Planned Parenthood's most recent poll, 96% of US adults believed that sex education should be supported in high schools. So, here I have from Planned Parenthood's rally for sex education, we see students, we see parents, we see children, we see our neighbors, we see all of these people here urging sex education as curriculum. So, I've discussed many things, and the takeaway here is that sex education should be essential for youth as it protects and guides our health. It does it in ways such as providing safe contraceptive use of information, information on potentially fatal STDs, and information on sexual consent and discipline. So, are you going to be a part of the change for our society? Are you going to be a part of this new wave of spreading information that protects our youth and protects our health in the best interest possible? It is never too early, but it can, in fact, be too late to urge this issue. Thank you.